Hey, everybody. My name is Reggie Lee. I am an actor and producer, and I have known this multi-talented, multi-hyphenate for many, many years.
More than we'll admit.
Well, I know ever since we played brother and sister in an off-Broadway show that shall be unnamed. She is a writer. She is a director. She is a producer. She is an actress. She's an advocate for Asian Americans in the theater and in the arts. And she is my best pal in the whole world. Ladies and gentlemen, the writer and the actress for this play, A Little More Blue, Christine Toy Johnson.
Thank you, Reggie. So
hey,
great
pal.
to see you. I know we're actually both in the same city, but across the town from each other.
We are. Well, we'll talk about your journey.
Yes.
In a little bit here. Yeah, I know. I miss you. I feel like I'm missing out since I'm not with you right now. And that's a little bit crazy. You're so close to me. When oftentimes we're like FaceTiming each other and trying to find times to FaceTime and see each other. This play was something else. First of all, it was incredibly touching for me, knowing you, knowing your relationship with your parents. And it was quite something to listen to. And in terms of your journey and the similarities with your dad and the non-similarities with your dad. So I guess my first question would be, why? I mean, why this? What gave you the inspiration to write this play?
Yeah, well, I have written about my dad and my mom before in other plays that were
yes, you have
that were fictionalized accounts of a large part of their own journeys and their romance together. But when we lost him almost a year ago, June 24th last year, and in reflecting on this great long life that he led, there were a lot of epiphanies that happened when I started thinking about how much he always really wanted to be considered an all-American guy. And something dropped in with me about how even though now it seems a little obvious, but how that compulsion has always been in me too. And that's the way I have navigated it, and the way I have found my way towards feeling like I could do something about that in an environment, in a society that doesn't really support that all the time. The idea of us, people that look like us, being considered American, let alone all American.
Yeah.
That I have been turning that energy towards not only my playwriting, but my activism in the arts. And it's always felt it's been very important to me for many years to not only advocate for Asian Americans in the arts and in the entertainment industry in general, but for all of us, because it's never made sense to me that here we are, this great American melting pot, that this has been the core of who we are as Americans, has largely been about how we've all come from different cultures and different communities, and we've come together and we're this beautiful mosaic and this beautiful tapestry, all these lovely metaphors for things that have come together to be one. And even though we have spoken about that, and we've tried to embrace that, I don't feel like it's been really successfully manifested. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And so it has always been important to me to fight for the idea becoming a reality of us being truly a tapestry mosaic of, we are the sum of our parts in a really beautiful way.
It's interesting because I felt so much of what you were going through in everything, almost everything that you talked about. You know, I was raised in Ohio, you in New York, like an
Right.
hour outside of New York City,
Yeah.
where I would feel it was probably more of a melting pot there than certainly Ohio. So I can definitely see how your idea of, like, for me, it was I saw very few Asians around me. So for you, it was like the idea
Same
that,
actually.
wow, okay,
Mhm. In the suburbs, very few. There were, I remember growing up in my high school, there was my brother and myself and another guy, Greg Liu, who I have not seen since then. But what I do remember very clearly is that the nickname he got in high school was Hop Sing.
wow,
Yeah, so there were only the three of us. I know.
wow, I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
And even though we were an hour north of Manhattan, yeah, it wasn't a very diverse community. My
Yeah.
immediate community. Yeah.
Yeah. And so probably all the more, as I felt as well, is that you wanted to be considered all American. And
Well,
that
and I
was
never
your intent.
understood why I wasn't. I was a Girl Scout with a million badges.
Yeah.
I was a classic overachiever. I was a cheerleader. I was in the musicals. I did all of the things that I thought would add up to that image. And then it was sort of a rude awakening to realize, oh no, wait, that's not what anybody else thinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I had this image when I was starting to think about writing this play. And honestly, I've been writing now for 20 years or so, and a lot of people have said to me over time, "Oh, when are you going to write yourself a solo play?" And I'm like, I'm not really interested in that. I don't see that happening. And for some reason, when I was thinking about all of these things, it became clear that it was something that I wanted to say, and it would take this format. In imagining all of these things, that's when I started thinking about this vending machine metaphor. It just came to me because I started feeling a little like, oh, what is that trapped feeling of people looking at you and choosing whether or not to
Mm.
to purchase you, in that kind of showbiz way that both as an
Yeah.
actor and a writer we go through,
Yeah.
people choosing us or not choosing us, and what that feels like to be sort of in a showcase, and you've got to prove yourself that you're worthy of being chosen. And of course, after all these years, you and I have talked about this so many times. You as a generative artist and a interpretive artist, you have different kinds of avenues to get your work out there, but that you hope as you mature and as you gain the experience that we have, you don't default to that position that feeling of oh, I need to wait until somebody chooses me in order
Hmm.
to do my art, or in order to tell the stories I'm compelled to tell. But the reality is we're human beings, and we're in an industry that does have gatekeepers and people that want to get through the gates. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
there's the idea of us being actors, right? And
Mhm.
then that's in itself one in which selection happens and it's very subjective. And then we're also Asian Americans.
Right.
So it's like the idea of them looking at us and going, do we fit in that box that they have?
Right.
So I can see how all this happened. I can talk to you forever. We can talk forever in a day about this.
I
I
know.
want to know too is uh, how did you come? So you have the story of your dad, and I think what was very moving for me was the structure of this particular play and how you structured it, and then your experiences growing up and how you kind of put it together. And I loved how that happened. How did you develop it, and how did it come to be that way?
It's funny. I heard it that way. That's the best thing I can say. And that
Mm.
happens to me a lot when I'm writing. I think about I do think about structure and I think about the technical parts of it, but a lot of times also I just hear things. And when I started writing this play, I thought I was about to go back on the road with Come From Away,
Mhm.
and I thought, okay, I'm just going to. I know that that's coming up. I'm going to need to concentrate on rehearsing and getting my head back into that whole routine. But I think I'm just going to jot down a few ideas because it's percolating. I'm dreaming about it. This happens to me a lot. I'm just thinking
Yes,
a
it does
lot
happen to you a
about it.
lot.
Yeah, yeah.
I can
And
testify.
yeah. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to write down a few ideas. I'm not going to push myself with a deadline. There's no deadline. And then I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll just organize those thoughts a little more. Maybe I'll do a little outline, light outline. And then I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll just write a few things that I hear, me saying about it. And I think I completed the first draft within 2 weeks. Now it's a first draft, um, but like I always like to say, I like to put the hangers in the closet when I'm writing a new piece.
Mhm.
The
I've heard you say
the
that.
hangers can be changed around, and the clothes can be different on the hangers, but at least the
Yeah.
hangers are in the closet, and so you have
Yeah.
something to go from. Um, so, what was the question?
The question was, how did you develop it in this
Oh,
way, where it was like this thing where you're blending your dad's
yeah.
almost dad's final moments with your experiences growing
I
up?
think it's really grew out of the the epiphanies that I had. It's I feel like what I've described this play as is part revelation, part memoir, because
Yeah.
it is that. I think that when you lose someone as important as a parent, um, you start to think about big picture ideas and how things add up and your purpose and how those things intersect and the threads in your family that have come together um, and what it all means. So what's exciting to me is that so I wrote the audio version of this play and my husband Bruce Johnson directed it. I'm so happy that he did. He's because he knows me and he knew my dad so well. They were very, very close.
Yeah.
And so that was really special.
Yeah.
He also did the sound editing.
I was gonna
And
ask about all that,
yeah, and my good friend Jason Ma wrote some original music for it.
which was
And then
beautiful,
yes, I think it's
really
so
beautiful.
beautiful, perfect. And then what I'm excited about, so that's what you heard tonight. And I've had these amazing opportunities that have kept reminding me how how much support um, means in continuing to tell a story that means a lot to you. Um, so what happened was I was encouraged to enter this contest for solo performance with the piece, and I ended up winning it, which was amazing. And it's the Alvin Epstein Memorial Prize for Solo Performance.
Mhm.
What it did was it gave me an opportunity to develop it for the theater, which is what I have done to do it on stage live
Okay.
eventually and expand it. And I was given
So it was written as an audio was it
yes.
written as an audio play? Okay.
Yes, I wrote it for this form, the version that you heard tonight.
Yeah.
I wrote it for specifically for this form.
And
But then
why? Why this form?
partially it's because I've been very interested in how, especially during the first year and a half of the pandemic, we um, we started figuring out additional ways to tell stories and not being able to be in the same room together
Yeah.
and for them to be portable and also to be able to share in larger audiences. And so I was really fascinated with how well that worked. It's no substitute for being in a theater with other people, but it's a art form that I had not explored before. And
Yeah.
so when I realized that I was going to be on the road, and also at the same time in residence at Yavington, I wanted to figure out a way that I could do something with Chad and the Abington and still be remote in a way. So we recorded this on a very nice mic in the bathroom of the PT dressing room in the theater that I was playing with Come From Way in Columbus, Ohio, for example. So you do what you can do.
Wow.
and
Wow.
and edited it through different hotel rooms and different places, adding the sound, and Jason wrote the music while he was in LA. But so what I then I decided, well, I want to expand this, and I want to be able to do it in a theater, which again, I never thought I was going to be that person who felt like, I want to write this story, I don't want to do it live, and I want to make myself talk
you have to
over an hour.
After hearing it, you have to.
Yeah. So we added Gretchen Cryer was the person that helped me through this. Through the prize, I was given the opportunity to work for the amazing actor and writer Gretchen Cryer, who does a lot of solo work. And so it now has 7 songs. 2 of them are original songs I wrote with Bobby Cronin, who's a frequent collaborator of mine. And others are, there are some others that are classics that are from the time period in which the story takes place. Anna Ebbison has written these beautiful arrangements for me. There's one of that combines Over the Rainbow with America the Beautiful.
Yeah.
There's one that combines When You Wish Upon a Star with a classical kind of Chinese piece. And so that, and just expanding the story a little bit to include a few more details and updates and on some things that have happened in my life. So I'm really excited to, I've gotten some grant support to further develop that. And so I'm hoping to be able to do this piece live sometime starting next year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how has it been being on the road and doing a residency with Abingdon?
The Chad Austin is amazing, and
He is amazing.
all the people there have been so supportive of me. And you don't have to be actually in the same physical space for that kind of support to have an effect and impact. And so they've been so supportive of my work. And I just came to him and said, look, I have this idea. What if we do this? And I got it. And then I got a grant from the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council to support this audio play, the development, so that I could help pay a lot of my collaborators to do the work with me. And Chad said yes, and here we are. So it's been great. And as he has reminded me, and I'm so grateful for, he said, your residency doesn't end on the date, that it was a year later from what we started. So I feel so lucky to have his support, the theater support, and a place that I feel like embraces me and the stories I want to tell.
What a wonderful group of people.
Yeah.
I can attest to that for sure. How was it working with your husband, Bruce Johnson, with him in the director's chair and you acting?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. We have actually worked together before. We met working together as actors.
Director, actress?
No. So we were together before as actor and actor, right? You. And then we also worked together co-directing a documentary about Wat Misaka.
Okay.
First non-Caucasian pro basketball player from the 1947 Knicks. And I was executive producing that and doing the grant writing and catering, and he was co-directing it with him. And then he also did all the editing and all the graphic design. We were like this 2-person band. But you're right. We had not really done this kind of thing, although he has always helped me with my self-tapes, because we've done so many self-tapes for me, auditions over the time, especially during the so it was really great because he reminded me of things about my dad that maybe I hadn't thought about adding into the story, or pulling out things that I hadn't really thought that I should or not should. I hadn't thought of pulling out of the story. And so it was great. And then we had a lot of fun working on the sound.
I was hearing things and I thought, That's a Bruce Johnson add-on right there. That's a
Yeah,
Bruce
yeah,
Johnson addition because it was so perfect. And so
yeah.
it did so much. I was really it was so visual for me. I
Oh,
mean,
good.
how it was happening, I could see your house, I could see that American flag, I could see like you with your dad, I could see everything. It was so wonderful, this medium, for
Oh,
this
thank
particular
you.
thing. The music, Jason did such a great job. How did you decide on tone for the music? Because it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a good question. Jason and I have also collaborated together for a very long time.
Yeah.
And basically, he just asked me questions about what I I envisioned in the story, in the world of the story, and also um, he knew my father as well. So it was really just a lucky convergence of all of the instincts and us knowing each other so well. But I really, yes, when I heard the first thing he played was the very last page, and I just started crying because it was so um, evocative of the feelings that I had, and so just perfectly in tune
Yeah.
with what I was trying to say.
It was very
One of the
interesting.
things
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say one of the things I said to him in the beginning is that here's what I don't want it to be, and when I'm adding songs and everything, especially too, well, here's what I don't want it to be a cabaret or a TED talk. So
Well, please don't make it sound like either of those things.
right, so it's meant to be eventually now in the live form. It's play with music, not a musical, and not a cabaret or a TED talk.
Yeah. I was going to say, there was something about your father's life being all American, your life being all American, and he had this quiet, at least from what I got from this play, was he had this quiet kind of pride and confidence, and he was he didn't say much, but he was a hard worker,
Oh
you
yeah,
know. And first of all, I'm floored by the fact that he designed the house that you grew up in. That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
I mean, to
It's
this day, that's the
beautiful.
house you go back to visit your mom,
Right,
you know.
right.
Um, and then here's your journey, and you have this same thought of being all American, and you are such an advocate, and you're talking about him not making any waves, even as he slipped away and passed away, and here you are making waves. Do you think that that's a generational thing, or do you think it's more personality, or do you think it's both?
I think it's yes, and also
Mm,
those two things, and
yeah,
a cultural thing that to generalize greatly, but that all Asian American people I know, all of our friends, even if we're of different um, cultural heritages, whether we're Filipino, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, we
yeah,
do share, we do share a sort of ingrained don't make waves, just
yeah,
work harder. That's how you're going to make a
yeah,
difference instead of making a fuss about something. And so
yeah.
I think that it's all of those things. Yeah.
Both. Yeah,
Hmm.
agreed. As much as, but it's very interesting how you. I mean, you are like someone I look up to in terms of your advocacy work, and so it's to see that, and even what you're saying about this material today. This is coming from your soul. This is coming from your heart. This is coming. These are stories. You're so creative in that way, and going, I'm just going to tell my own stories. I don't have to
Oh,
wait for someone to say yes to tell my story. I'm going to do it. It's very inspiring for me. I just wanted you to
oh.
know, well, you know that, but at the same time, I think it's interesting to see how we've evolved. I mean, in terms of now this generation, and I see my nieces, and they're just like speaking and the whole bit, they're out there, you know?
I think that also it's definitely taken me a while to separate the idea of someone perhaps not choosing to do a play of mine because they don't think that someone who looks like me should write that way or about that topic. I'm separate. It's taken me a while to separate that knowledge from the idea that internalizing it
Yeah.
and thinking, oh well, it's not a story that is worth telling. I've never actually believed that any of the stories that I've written have not been worth telling, but I have internalized the idea of something not being produced as equaling and not perhaps being good enough. And I think now I've just become more confident is not really the word, but just I feel just really in my soul that the stories I want to tell are the stories that I should tell. And so I keep endeavoring to do them in bigger ways, but deeper ways, and in ways that really come direct from my heart and soul, in a way that can translate and mean something to others who experience it. That's the hope that that something I really feel strongly about saying is received in a really meaningful way.
I felt like this was such a beautiful tribute to your dad, and also a wonderful tribute to your voice,
Oh,
and the
thank you.
blending of those two things. And I think he is amazingly proud of you. I'm incredibly proud of you.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to talk to you about one last thing, and that's that you, along with the rest of the steering committee, would it be a steering committee for the Asian American Performers Alliance Coalition?
Action Coalition, actually.
Asian American Performers Action
Coalition, right. AAPIPAC.
Have been awarded a Tony Award this year for your advocacy work.
Yes,
and
it's amazing.
Tell me about that.
It's the Tony Honors for Excellence in Theater. So they're considered some of the non-competitive Tony Awards. In fact, I just was there last night in New York City to receive the honor with my colleagues, and it was an epic night. It's so funny because I've had to write an amendment to my story about, I being in sixth grade, writing a play about winning a Tony Award. Yeah. Fast forward, all these years later, to actually receiving, not in the way that I ever dreamed, but so meaningful. So APAC, we started 11 years ago. A group of Asian American actors basically wondering if what we suspected was true, that Asian American actors were not being represented in New York City stages. And so that was the seed of it. And this week, I don't know where we came up with the name steering committee, but many of us on the steering committee are co-founders. We were there from the beginning. We're still there. And we have done a lot of bridge building initiatives, and also developed this visibility report that really counts numbers of not only Asian American actors who are working on Broadway and the large off-Broadway theaters, but also very many other members of historically excluded communities, to sort of show the picture of what is really happening and how underrepresented so many people are in a city that is arguably one of the most diverse cities in the United States.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
So we're so honored, and it's very exciting to be, seen.
Yeah.
And when we're actively looking to increase our visibility, and in this time when there has been such a horrific rise in anti-Asian violence, to know that our stories matter more now than ever. And if we can chip away at the stereotypes and the perceptions that lead to the dehumanization of us, and lead to more erasure and violence, and we can do that through the arts, which I have always said has this unique opportunity to expand perceptions of who we are and what we can do, not only to others, but to ourselves. If we do that, then, we're just going to probably die on the hill doing it. But it's that important. It's that important.
I've always said, you are really going to be, you're remembered for your advocacy, and thank you, because you've helped all of us, and you've helped me. I mean, personally, so I'm inspired by you. Congratulations on your Tony Award. Congratulations on this beautiful play. Is there anything else that you want to say about this play?
I'm just thank you for being here and listening to the story. It's so important to me, not only personally, but to really impart that message of being present and looking at the big picture, and as it keeps changing, to keep leaning into that. And I aspire to live that message that I'm preaching every day.
And you do. So everyone out there, thank you for joining us for this talk back for A Little More Blue, and my best pal, Christine Toy Johnson. I'm so incredibly proud of you. And when she writes this and gets on the stage, I will see all of you in the audience.
Thank you, Reggie.
Till then.
Thank you, Abingdon.
Thank you, Abingdon, for having us.